Alright, so I came back and made a video last night finally. And it was more of just talking about, the whole Alien and Area 51 thing. But now we're going to get back into the other topics going on around. And that's not to say that there may not actually be some truth to what I was talking about last night. That was just more of, let's just discuss possibilities and what if and what could be going on here. And I kind of did that just for fun, but also because it was a topic going on in the news, and it is in a way concerning. Okay? But for those of you who've been wondering how come I haven't put out any videos in the last couple of days, well, the big reason for that is, obviously, if you've been watching some of others, you've heard me kind of sounding pretty bad lately, and I still don't sound the best. But I've been getting sick worse and worse over the last 2 weeks. I thought it was just, seasonal allergies that just got me all congested or whatever. Gone through it before. So I was taking the medicines, doing everything that I've done in the past to knock it out. Could not make any progress with it. And if anything, it felt like it was starting to get worse. By the time I made my last video, I started hearing this real bad gurgling and wheezing noise coming from my lungs when I would try to take deep breaths. And it was getting pretty bad. So finally, I had to do something that I have not done in about 7 to 8 years. Now, I'm not saying as an, ooh, look at me. Because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who've actually had to go longer than I have. And that's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. For the first time in about 7 to 8 years, I had to go to the doctor. I had no other choice. Now, for those of you who haven't watched any of my other videos and heard, I don't have insurance. Okay? But I looked online. I tried to get some idea of how much it was going to cost. So I went to Minute Clinic, and just from quick things that I found online, it said you could roughly spend somewhere between $60 to $120. Well, I just crossed my fingers, booked the appointment because I said I've got to go. Minute Clinic's close by. I was at a CVS. Booked myself in line, went, and hoped it would be closer to that $60 figure, if anything. So I get there. And the lady who waited on me, now I have to say this up front right now, okay? She was nothing but professional. She was an excellent nurse practitioner. She helped me out in very, very many ways. So as a recommendation for Shay Brock, if you live in Spartanburg, South Carolina, CVS over in Bowling Springs, Minute Clinic, she is excellent. So if you're able to go, you got insurance, it doesn't cost you much, or if you just are able to go, I highly recommend her. She was actually very, very helpful to me. Okay? And anyway, in every way that she could be. Anyway, for example, when she gave me the prescriptions that she told me I needed to go get ASAP because my lungs had gotten really, really, really bad from all that congestion, and I just couldn't get it out of my system. So she prescribed me antibiotics and put me on an inhaler and told me to continue taking, congestion medication and whatnot to get rid of it. She gave me good RX coupons so that instead of having to pay $100 for the inhaler, I actually ended up being able to go to a Walgreens where she found a good deal on one, and I got it for only $45. Okay. For the antibiotics, I was able to get a discount on that, get those for around $30 to right at about $30, actually, I think. So, that being said, now let's get to how much the appointment itself costed. Because I had no insurance, $140. And you can't pay it like later on and go online or whatever. You got to pay like then. Like right then. Now, kind of makes sense. You let someone go, you may never see a bit of that money, so you want to get paid. Hey, I kind of get that. But $140? Literally, and all she did, she listened to my lungs, she felt my head, checked my temperature, took my blood pressure, shined the light inside my mouth and looked at my throat. That was about it. And just asked me some questions. I was in and out of that room in probably a good 10 minutes, if that. $140. And I'm not holding that against her in any way, shape, or form. It's this system that we have. It's the healthcare system that we have. This is why older senior citizens have to have their pills, cut them in half and take half a dose to make the pills last longer. That's why things like this go on in this country. People can't afford it. Now, I probably would have had a much cheaper bill if I had insurance. But the cost of insurance is more than I can financially afford right now. The only chance that I've got of getting insurance is if I get a job that actually carries really, really good insurance and pays me well enough that I can afford for that, premium every month to come out of my paycheck. That's the only chance someone like me has of really getting insurance that they can afford. Okay? So, the point behind this is, if you were to sign up for insurance, someone like me, because I'm sick, and it turned out it was like an upper respiratory infection or something, so she had to give me the antibiotics to help start knocking that out, because regular, over-the-counter stuff wasn't cutting it. And unfortunately, you can't go just buy antibiotics on your own. You have to go get prescriptions. Okay? So the point here being is, someone like me, $140 alone isn't a small amount of money. Now you add in what I have to pay on top of that just to get the medications that I had to go see the doctor to get. And we're not talking $5-10. Because once again, I have no insurance. By the time it was all done, obviously, if you've been sitting here doing the math, I was well over, about $200 to $220. Somewhere in that ballpark. Just to get the medication to get well. That is certainly no small amount of money for a guy like me. Okay? That could, now it won't. Me and my wife have sat down and looked at our budget, and we're going to have enough to get by. So I'm not sitting here trying to get the pity. I'm saying this to draw the point. For someone else, that could be whether or not they're able to pay their water bill, well, not their water bill probably, but power bill, house payment, their car insurance. How much groceries are they going to be able to buy to feed themselves? They're going to probably have to cut something. And it could be something that really hurts them and affects them just because they had no other choice but to go to the doctor to get something done because their condition seemed to only get worse and it wasn't getting any better. And that's not a good system. That's not a good system, especially when you consider what kind of money these pharmaceutical companies are raking in. Again, the top big pharma companies raked in over, and insurance companies, all over $65 billion in profits last year. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And they want to spend their money to go on television running ads saying that this country can't have a system like Medicare for all. And of course, there are a lot of people out there who just genuinely believe that it wouldn't work and it would be a bad thing. And then, of course, you've got the other people who say, how are you going to pay for it? Well, I'll tell you what, I don't even have to give you details about how we're going to pay for it, because somehow, some way, we're having to pay for the current system, and that is going to cost over $10 trillion more. 2 to blah 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 blah. Pardon me. like 2 to 10 trillion more over the next 10 years than Medicare for All. You'd be saving money to switch to Medicare for All. So if we can pay for what we've got going on right now, we should be able to pay for the other one. Just seems like common sense to me. But at the same time, 32 trillion, what is it they're saying Medicare for All is going to cost? And the Pentagon and their audits have misplaced like a grand total over time of like 30 trillion through waste and whatnot that they can't really account for. It's just poof, gone missing. There you go. There you go. You know, and it may not have been like 30 trillion. I can't remember the exact figure. I made a video on it a while back. It was either like 20 trillion or 30 trillion or somewhere in the middle of that. Still, hey, you took a big chunk out of having to pay for something like Medicare for All at that point. You really have. You really have. But even if you didn't have a Medicare for All system, even if you didn't have a Medicare for All system, the health market and you know the benefit side of this, anyone who goes to work, works a 40-hour week, busts their butt, should not be having to worry about whether or not they can afford to buy the medicine that they need for their health, or if they fall ill and need to go see a doctor, whether or not they can afford it, because we're getting into life or death here. Take Medicare for All out of it. You know these costs can most certainly be lowered, and most certainly can come down when you look at their profit margins. They don't need that much profit to survive. Especially, now of course, we go back to that argument, they say they need it for research, but as we've discussed in previous videos, the government and the taxpayers' money that we're already spending is funding the majority of that research, not those companies. So this is just a completely backwards system here, and it's not good. It's not good, and it reassured me why I hadn't gone to the doctor in so long, even though in the last 7 to 8 years I did have health insurance that was actually pretty good with a previous job that I'd had. The pay wasn't so great, but the benefits in the insurance were, surprisingly. Figure that one out. You'd think if they could give you good benefits, they could give you a decent hourly rate you could live off of. But nonetheless, So that's that. But that's the deal there. That's the deal. And people like myself, just now that we have no insurance, when you get into a predicament, and it's just like what I was telling, in other videos earlier this year when I ended up stabbing a hole in my hand right there in between my thumb and my index finger. And I didn't go to the doctor for any of it. I had to stay at home and treat it at home. I was too worried to try to go to an ER and get it stitched up and clean because of what the bill would look like when I left. If going to a nurse practitioner for a 10-minute visit cost me $140, what would going to an ER to get stitches cost? It's outrageous. It's outrageous. And this sort of system that we have right now could literally be causing a life or death situation for someone, because all these big companies out there just want to sit around and rake in the money. And it's not right. It's not right. So, I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. If you don't agree with Medicare for All, that's fine. But I don't think anyone at this point could sit here and say that what these companies are doing, all the money that they're making, all the money they're bringing in, and for them to be charging prices that, hardworking people simply can't afford because they can't afford insurance either. If you can afford insurance, you really don't have much to worry about. But if you can't afford the insurance, you're getting screwed from both sides. Both sides. And it's just not right. So, drop a comment if you agree, disagree. Drop a comment below. And hope you'll tune into the next video. We'll be talking about some more issues coming up soon. Thank you.